I'm Anna Triponel, and I'm so thrilled to be here with Susannah McLaren from the Cobalt Institute. We've been working together for over 2 years, using the UN guiding principles as part of our work. Please tell us a bit more about yourself, the Cobalt Institute, and then how you've been using the UN guiding principles in your work.
Sure, and thanks for inviting me to this chat. So I'm Susannah McLaren. I'm the head of responsible sourcing and sustainability at the Cobalt Institute, and we are the global industry association for the cobalt industry. We represent the whole cobalt value chain. So that includes miners, recyclers, traders, midstream manufacturers, and end users. And we estimate that we represent about 80% of the global cobalt market. And that brings me to the point about the UN guiding principles. We knew the direction of travel was moving very much towards the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, which was called something totally different at the time, and was actually really very much in the initial phases, but we knew it was the direction of travel. We had seen, of course, the French law come out, and we knew that the German one was on the cards, so the direction was only going to get stronger and go in one way. So I thought it would be a useful exercise to understand as an industry association how we could get our members prepared for the legislation. And as an industry, we're very embedded in the OECD due diligence guidance for responsible minerals, which is of course a very important document, but our members were sadly going to be facing, the higher level UNGPs and the OECD multinational enterprise guidelines.
I thought it was fantastic the way, Susannah, you sort of foresaw, right, the direction of travel for the laws, and coming in, you're like, okay, well, what can I do to really help equip my members for all of these laws that are coming up? And then, I go back to the essentials, the foundations of what these laws are based on, the UN guiding principles and the OECD guidelines. Okay, let's pull up our sleeves here and really go into this. And what does it mean for us? So what does it mean? What does it mean for you?
We are a value chain representative, which means that we have members from across the spectrum, different regions and different parts of the value chain. And therefore it's important to understand the risks, to each part of the value chain and each geography, if you like. And therefore we felt that the best way to start getting prepared was to understand our risks at an industry level. But we started by working with yourself, as you mentioned, and with 11 sources on identifying our risks actually, and then assessing them, but really at industry level, and then landing on using a principled approach aligned with the international frameworks, landing on what are our most salient risks. And we did identify environmental and human rights risks. And really, from the perspective of people, from the perspective of where are people being harmed the most. So yes, it's no surprise that we still, there was a dominance of issues in fragile countries like the Congo. Right. But actually, what we found was that there were issues that we have blind spots, for instance, China.
Yes, I found that really fascinating in this process, that from taking that step back and looking at that full value chain, and it's on the Cobalt Institute's website, going all the way from where these mines are actually sourced from, all the way, going through the transportation, refining, all the way to the end use and recycling.
So cobalt is an enabler of the green transition, but in being so, we mustn't forget that there could be impacts related to that. So just because we're a metal that's part of the good, we also need to think about, where could we be creating impacts. And cobalt is infinitely recyclable, so of course it's part of the circular economy solution. And therefore, particularly in our value chain, recycling and disposal are a really important part. And it's still, especially from the electric vehicles agenda, because cobalt goes into the batteries of most electric vehicles.
Right, yes, really using salience to look ahead of the curve of where the risks will start and will only increase with time, given, of course, how much cobalt, the demand for cobalt will increase with time, which was one of your major findings from the Cobalt Institute's report this year, that we will need double cobalt by 2030. And much more from Indonesia as well, which is emerging.
And just on the point of Indonesia, and yes, it still remains way behind the DRC, which makes up over 70%, but it is an important market. There are challenges. We heard a lot at our conference about the ESG challenges that need to be resolved. and that was just something like on the cusp of we were just picking up on it at the time when we did the value chain exercise. So certainly it's a useful exercise and a tool, not just for ourselves. It's on our website and it's publicly available to inform, you know, all users and stakeholders of Cobalt. So we've been very transparent about it. But yes, it needs to be regularly reviewed, because especially when you're working on the green transition agenda, technologies, you know, geopolitics, it's fast-paced, and we certainly need to already start to add to it.
It's the foundation of looking at your risk, but then of course it evolves as the operating context evolves, and as, you know, all these factors around that make risk more likely, more severe, evolve.
And it guides our work at the Cobalt Institute on where we prioritize our efforts. And I think as an industry, you need something to support you and to give you a principled way and where you focus your efforts.
Which is a lovely segue into my final question for you, Susannah, which is, what tips or recommendations would you give to other trade associations or others that are bringing, you know, collective of companies together within one umbrella, and what are some of the things that your members have found helpful?
In terms of tips, I think if you're not doing it already, you know, start socializing the UNGPs amongst your membership. It takes time, and perhaps I wanted to go faster than the industry was ready. So, you know, take your time, and also I think some of the learning is use the UNGPs and you really use latch on to the concept of leverage. And if you do represent a value chain, latch on to like how you can creatively find ways to make that value chain and the stakeholders involved, you know, work together to find common solutions. And then finally, if your members are up for it, but of course you can play a role in encouraging them, really encourage that peer learning within your sector. But I think one of the good reasons of working with you, Anna, is that you also bring that cross-sector fertilization. And I think that's invaluable, because if you're just staying within your sector, focus on your challenges, you can't bring in fresh thinking. So we saw that as our conference, where you brought in Nestle, you brought in Aim Progress, you know, fast moving consumer goods, different markets, agriculture, you know, it's really helpful to understand, and it also makes our members realize, okay, we're not the only ones, you know, dealing with the problem.
Yes, we heard a lot this at this conference, the Cobalt Learning Group members saying, well, you know, just learning from the other sectors, like, yes, it puts our challenges into perspective, but also gives us new insights about how to tackle them. So the cross-learning is all the more important. Thank you so much, Susannah, for being here with us today, and thank you for watching. See you next time.
Thank you.